So, minutes of the proceeding of the national territory. The minutes of the proceeding of the national territory refers to the discussion and decisions made regarding the territorial integrity and governance of the Philippines. This proceeding typically involve the government's officials, policymakers, and other stakeholders. The passage consists of two sets of minutes from session held on different dates in 1972. The first set of minutes is from a session held in February 11, 1972. It starts with President Gustavo Macapagal calling the session to order and includes various activities such as singing the national anthem, delivering an invocation, and declaring the presence of a quorum. The session that discusses the consideration of committee reports on the national territory with a motion to defer consideration of one of them on one item on the agenda. The session is later suspended and resumed before adjourning until the following day. The second set of minutes is from a session held on February 17, 1972. It begins with Floor Leader Garcia announcing the next item on the agenda, which is the consideration of the revised draft article on national territory. The session includes discussion and debates on various aspects of the draft article, such as its wording, definition of terms, and implications. There are motions made, votes taken, and requests to insert remarks and discussion into the journal. The session also addresses other matters including the approval of the draft article on national territory and the presentation of the draft article on civil service. Overall, the passage provides a glimpse into the proceeding and discussion of these sessions, particularly regarding the consideration and approval of the draft article on national territory and the draft article on civil service. So next is the role of Islam in the history of the Filipino people. Islam has played a significant role in the history of the Filipino people. So the introduction of Islam to the Philippines dates back to the 13th century when Arab and Malay Muslim traders arrived in the southern part of the country. Over time, Islam spread throughout the archipelago, particularly in Mindanao and Sulu archipelago. Islam had a profound impact on the cultural, social, and political aspects of the Filipino society. It brought about changes in religious practice, customs, and traditions. Islamic principles influenced the legal system, education, and governance in areas with Muslim populations. So historically, Islam also played a role in resistance against the Spanish colonization. Muslim communities, particularly in the south, fought against Spanish forces seeking to expand their control. The resistance movements, such as the Moro Wars, were driven partly by a desire to preserve Islamic identity and autonomy. Today, Islam continues to be an integral part of the Filipino society. The country recognizes Islam as one of its major religions, and Muslims constitute a significant minority population. The Filipino Muslim community actively participates in the socio-political landscape, striving for self-determination, peace, and religious freedom. So next is history of terrorism in the Philippines. The history of terrorism in the Philippines is a complex and multi-faceted issue. Various terrorist groups have operated within the country, each with different motivations and agendas. Here is a brief overview of some prominent incidents and groups. So the Moro National Liberation Front, or MNLF, and Moro Islamic Liberation Front, or MILF. These groups emerged in the 1970s and sought to establish an independent Islamic state in Mindanao. They have engaged in armed conflicts with the Philippine government but have also participated in peace negotiations. Abu Sayyaf Group, or ASG, formed in the early 1990s. The ASG has gained international notoriety for its kidnapping for ransom activities and acts of terrorism. They have links to international terrorist organizations like Qaeda and have been involved in bombings, beheadings, and attacks on civilians and security forces. So next is the Communist Insurgency. The Communist Party of the Philippines, or CPP, and its armed wing, the New People's Army, or NPA, have waged a long-standing insurgency since the late 1960s. While not primarily driven by religious ideology, these activities, this act of terrorism such as bombing and association. The extremist groups. There have been various splinter groups and factions associated with radical ideologies and terrorism. Some of these include the Raha Sulaiman Movement, Bangsamoro Islamic Freedom Fighters or BIFF, and Multi Group. So the Philippine government has taken measures to combat terrorism, including military operations, intelligence gathering, and cooperation with international partners. Effort to address the root causes of terrorism such as poverty, marginalization, and political grievances have also been pursued alongside security initiatives. So next is the agreement between the GRP and the MILF. So the agreement between the government of the Republic of the Philippines, or also known as GRP, and the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, or MILF, refers to the peace process aimed to resolving the conflict in Mindanao. Several key agreements have been reached between the two parties. One is the Tripoli Agreement in 1976. This agreement was the first major attempt to address the Moro insurgency. It established an autonomous region in the southern Philippines, known as the Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, or ARMM. Next is the final peace agreement in 2014. After years of negotiations, the GRP and the MILF signed a comprehensive peace agreement. It outlined the creation of a new autonomous political entity called the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, or BARMM. The agreement aimed to provide self-governance and address the historical grievance of the Bangsamoro people. So next is the Bangsamoro Organic Law, which is made in 2018. The law was enacted to implement the provision of the 2014 peace agreement. It established the legal framework of the BARMM and defined its powers, territory, and governance structure. So the agreement between the GRP and the MILF represents a significant milestone in the pursuing of lasting peace and development in Mindanao. However, changes remain in the implementation of the peace process, including disarmament, socio-economic development, and addressing the concerns of other stakeholders in the region. Next is the report of cholera in the Philippines, also known as Knowledge Cut-Off in September 2021. So during such epidemics, the government and health authorities typically mobilize efforts to contain the spread of the disease. Measures may include providing clean water, providing sanitation, infrastructure, conducting public awareness campaign, and implementing the medical interventions such as oral rehydration therapy and antibiotic treatment. It's essential to consult up-to-date sources such as official health agencies or news outlets for accurate and current information on any recent cholera outbreaks in the Philippines. So next is Mintal, the Little Tokyo of the pre-war Philippines. So Mintal, also known as the Little Tokyo of the pre-war Philippines, refers to the district in Davao City that had a significant Japanese presence before World War II. So during that time, Japanese immigrants established businesses, farms, and communities in Mintal and contributed to the local economy and cultural landscape. So Japanese settlers in Mintal engaged in various industries such as agriculture, fishing, and trade. They introduced advanced farming techniques including the cultivation of abaca, a type of banana fiber, and rubber, and other crops. Japanese-owned business and shops thrive in the area, catering to both local Filipino community and Japanese residents. So however, during World War II, the Japanese population in Mintal, along with other Japanese communities in the Philippines, faced challenges and disruptions. With the onset of the war, many Japanese residents were forced to leave or were interned by the occupying Japanese forces. So after the war, Mintal gradually rebuilt and Japanese communities saw some resurgence. However, the dynamic changed significantly compared to the pre-war period. Today, while there may still be some Japanese influence in the area, Mintal is primarily a residential and agricultural district within Davao City. So next is the post-war Philippines. So the post-war period of the Philippines refers to the time following World War II when the country sought to rebuild and recover from the devastation caused by the war. So during this era, the Philippines faced various challenges and underwent significant political, social, and economic changes. So one of the key developments was the granting of independence to the Philippines by the United States on July 4, 1946. The country transitioned from being a U.S. colony to an independent republic. The new government faced a task of nation building, reconstructing war-damaged infrastructure, and addressing the socio-economic needs of the nation. So in the post-war years, the Philippines experienced rapid economic growth and industrialization. The government implemented policies to promote agricultural and industrial development, such as the import substitution strategy. However, despite these efforts, the country faced persistent issues of poverty, inequality, and political instability. So the post-war era also witnessed significant political changes. Presidents such as Ramon Magsaysay, Ferdinand Marcos, and Corazon Aquino held office during this period, each leaving their mark on the country's political landscape. So additionally, the Philippines faced ongoing challenges related to armed conflicts, particularly in Mindanao, where separatist movements and communist insurgency persisted. So in the so during the Philippines 1972 and 1986, the period from 1972 to 1986 in the Philippines was marked by the authoritarian role of President Ferdinand Marcos in 1972. Marcos declared martial law, suspending civil liberties, and assuming full control over the government. This period is known as the martial law era. So during this time, Marcos implemented authoritarian policies, curtailed press freedom, and suppressed political opposition. Human rights abuse, including torture and extrajudicial killings, were prevalent. So Marcos on his administration focused on consolidating power and promoting economic development. But widespread corruption and crony capitalism characterized their governance. So in the 1970s and early 1980s saw increased resistance and activism against the Marcos regime. So opportunist figures such as the Senator Benigno Aquino Jr. and civil society organizations actively campaigned for diplomatic reforms. The assassination of Benigno Aquino Jr. in 1983 became a turning point and galvanized options to the Marcos regime. It sparked mass protests and led to the eventual downfall of the dictatorship. So the Filipino Power Revolution, the People Power Revolution in February 1986, also known as the EDSA Revolution, saw millions of Filipinos taking to the street in non-violent demonstration demanding the restoration of democracy. The military, previously loyal to Marcos, defected to support the people's movement. This resulted in Marcos fleeing the country and Corazon Aquino, the widow of Benigno Aquino Jr., assuming the presidency. So next is Philippines from 1986 to the present. So since the People Power Revolution in 1986, the Philippines has undergone significant political, social, and economic changes. Some key developments during this period include restoration of democracy, socio-economic changes, political instability, regional autonomy and peace processes, and economic growth and global integration, changes and opportunities, and many more.